Hey, it's Jaquila, and you're tuning in to Conversations of Truth, where faith meets lifestyle. Get ready for real talk, genuine connections, and a safe space for everyone. I am not a therapist, but I've weathered life storms, and I'm here to share. Let's heal together. Now open your heart and mind because the journey starts now. Hey family, welcome back to another episode of Conversations of Truth podcast, and welcome to those of you who may be joining us for the first time. You guys, we will not have a video for this episode. I'm so sorry, but the audio will still be posted on YouTube. So if you are not following us on YouTube, I encourage you to do so ASAP. You guys know that we are currently in a series titled Blessed Are the Peacemakers. And in this series, we are discussing things pertaining to conflict. We're going to start with addressing conflict from a biblical point of view. I believe that I am in the right place with this series because this week my pastor actually spoke on holding grudges and how holding grudges keeps us from the fullness of God. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, one thing that is constant in life is change. And another thing is that we will encounter conflict in a way, shape, form, or fashion. And if we are not careful, our flesh will respond before a spirit is able to grab hold of us. So I want to talk about that, you guys. I want to talk about handling conflict first, and then we'll learn how to confront it from biblical principles. And we'll discuss how to overcome the residue that is left over, whether that be through forgiveness or restoration. The Bible teaches us how to handle conflict in multiple scriptures, and some of those are included in today's episode. But first, I want you guys to think about a moment in time when you were living for you. You were not living or walking with Jesus, and maybe someone hit your car, maybe someone started a rumor about you, maybe someone ate your food in the refrigerator that you had your mind set on all day. Now, as you think about that, I want you to think about how you responded. Did you curse them out? Did you get them back? Did you call them up ready to fight? Which one was it? Chances are you answered yes, that you cussed them out. Yes, you got your lick back. And yes, you called them up ready to fight. Because that's what your flesh wanted. Your flesh wanted them to feel how they made you feel, if not worse. And it's okay because that's a fleshly response. Now, what would not necessarily be okay is if that was your same response as a believer. So that's what we're doing next. I want you guys to sit and think about that same scenario, that same situation, and consider how you would respond as a believer and as a representation of Christ. Now, did your reaction change? Don't answer out loud. But it is my prayer that your answer is yes, you would have a changed reaction. But if it was a little in between, that's okay too. We're going to discuss today how conflict is one way to give God glory. How we respond to conflict is a way to give God glory. In Matthew 18, it tells us to go straight to the person if we're dealing with conflict. And going straight to the person helps us in so many ways, but mainly it keeps us from gossiping. You don't want to be entrapped in the snares of gossip. And it also keeps our words from being mixed up. Depending on who we speak to, that person could run back and tell the other person something that was left field to what it is that you actually said. Back in the day, I have had several situations where I was in conflict and I thought it was best to vent to somebody. And then the person I was in conflict with would come back and tell me what I done vented. Like, okay, so I know who not to speak to. And as I got older and grew wiser, I just stopped telling people my business and my feelings when it pertains to conflict because I didn't want to be one that was caught up in drama. As I got older, I began to have so much more to lose. We want to approach conflict with love, you guys. When we approach conflict with love, it kind of makes it easier, or we hope that it would make it easier to talk to the person. When we initiate the conversations, it should be from a place of compassion rather than accusation. We never want to accuse someone before understanding their full perspective or point of view. People are usually more receptive to calm and polite tones. Now, what I'm about to say is not meant for manipulation, but more so because people of this sort have a tougher exterior. Now, what I was going to say is we want to remain calm and polite in a sense to like stroke their ego. It doesn't hurt to allow people to think that they are in control when really all we're trying to do is glorify God. They wouldn't know the difference, but God knows the difference in how you respond. So Proverbs 15:1 tells us, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So if we respond to someone who is trying to blow the conflict out of proportion, or they want to carry it on, we can give them just a gentle answer like, I apologize, even if you're not really sorry. Like, I'm not gonna say even if you're not really sorry. Even if you feel like there's no reason for you to be sorry, you can still just simply apologize to, smooth things over with them. That is a gentle way to turn away wrath. You can also apologize for your tone, maybe your delivery, because although you may have felt like it was normal and you weren't being mean or nasty, we are not to say how someone interpreted or received our communication. So Proverbs 10:12 says, hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers over all things. And then Proverbs 15:18 says, a hot-tempered person stirs up conflict, but the one who is patient calms a quarrel. So those three Proverbs, which we know is the book of wisdom, right? Those three support the idea to approach with love. Now, we also, when dealing with conflict, we want to understand that it's okay to seek reconciliation, because reconciliation isn't just for one person's benefit, but it's for both parties' benefit, because the goal is for peace and unity, not necessarily proving a point. You don't always have to be right. Even if you are right, it's okay to play like you're not right, or to not mention that you're right. Because when you mention like, no, I'm right, you're wrong, that's more so of the spirit of pride rising up inside of you. And we don't need that. We aren't aiming to win arguments, right? We don't want the beef that comes with it. We just want peace. We want to make sure that our hearts remain pure. And I understand, because we have to die to our flesh every day, that this may not be your initial response, but we have to remember who we are subject to, and that is the Lord. And now, in the beginning, we discussed how it's important to go straight to the person to avoid gossip. And that's because gossip can cause damage in conflict, rather than us being able to resolve it directly and more quickly. Gossip can stir up more troubled waters than what we had before the gossip occurred. So it's important to just steer clear of gossip. If you can't go straight to the person, then don't go to nobody at all. Proverbs 11:13 says, a gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. And Proverbs 16:28 tells us that a perverse person stirs up conflict, and a gossip separates close friends. So while using these different approaches to conflict, I want us to understand that it can be potentially a bit more difficult when we're dealing with people who don't believe what we believe and who don't have the same mindset that we do. But it's important that we use wisdom and understand that there is power in walking away, because they're not going to sit there and fuss and fight with themselves. They're just not. So you don't have to continue to engage in a conflict or a conversation that is going nowhere. Like, you can give them a break, allow them to cool off, and then come back to see if they're open to gaining some sort of understanding from both sides. So you guys, this episode was to basically help us navigate conflict with friends and family. We want to be sure that we have understanding of emotions and communications so that the understanding won't just be from a biblical perspective, but also a mental understanding, because again, we may sometimes deal with non-believers, and although we're approaching them with love and with the things that we have learned from the Bible, we also have to learn how to speak to them and talk to them in a way that they understand, because throwing scripture at them is not gonna cause them to understand. And also in this, I want to put out some key scriptures. They weren't mentioned, but I feel like they're very important to this particular topic. And Galatians 5:17 says, "For the flesh desires what is contrary to the spirit, and the spirit what is contrary to the flesh." Remember what my pastor said: when the flesh is strong, the spirit is weak. They are in conflict with one another. The spirit and the flesh is in conflict with one another, because the spirit wants you to do whatever you want to do, and the flesh wants you to do whatever you want to do, and the spirit wants you to do what is right unto God. And then we have James 1:19 and 20. It basically tells us to be slow to speak and quick to listen. When we're slow to speak and quick to listen, we are able to avoid accusation. We are able to avoid gossip. We are able to avoid putting our emotions at the forefront instead of like logic. And we're also able to understand where that person, the other person, may be coming from. We don't know. They may have had a bad day. They may have just been a misunderstanding. But if we're trying to prove our point and we're trying to prove ourselves to be right, or we're just trying to get what we have to say off our chest, opposed to yielding the floor to them, we would probably never reach a means of forgiveness or reconciliation. So you guys, that is it for today's episode. It was really, really short, not too much. And I pray that the tips given today will be able to help you in your next experience with conflict, because it's sure to come. It is sure to come. And I just pray that Holy Spirit will be what leads you. For those that may not be saved, I pray that this also helped you. I feel like it's good for everyone. I don't think that it's only for believers. However, believers tend to have an understanding that we don't respond out of flesh in our carnal minds and our carnal ways. So yeah, y'all, that's it. If you have not joined us on YouTube, be sure to do so. Again, there would be no video for this episode, but the podcast is also available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you guys know anybody that want to come on as a guest for this series, be sure to send me an email. I would love to have them. Of course, they're going to be vetted to make sure that they are a good fit for the family. But I love you guys, and we shall chat soon. Bye. If you're still here with us, I want to say thank you for listening. You can join the conversation on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Conversations of Truth. If you have questions or advice, email us at conversationsoftruth@gmail.com. Remember, you are loved, valued, and there is always hope. Until next time, I love y'all. Bye.